Those who are familiar with Bill Hick's work in a stand-up comedy often place him alongside George Carlin, Lenny Bruce, Richard Pryor, and Sam Kinison, one of the most funniest voices and brightest minds in recent history. And for good reason. Bill was bold and ballsy, even when with these traits repeatedly landed him in trouble. In the early stages of his career, his routines were frequently earned him death threats from offended audience members, when they didn't earn him any general indifference. Bill spoke on a number of different subjects, including his Southern Baptist upbringing, his Texas, and frustration of declined popular culture throughout the 1880s and 90s. And undoubtedly, the most compelling work was his open criticism of various governments, practically the United States government, which he believed to have committed various atrocities in the interest of protecting its own power, then claimed to be acting in order to defuse imaginary threats to justify itself. In the support of this idea, he frequently cited the assassination of John Kennedy, the Gulf War, and later in his career, the massacre of Brandevigians by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms as an example of such atrocities. He also cited the criminalization of mind-altering substances with the encouragement of alcohol and tobacco use as methods of keeping the American public docile and complacent. What made Bill's material so much compelling, though, was his ability to create detailed and explicit scenes around each of his points. Bill would often start off outlining the scenes that were already humorously graphic to begin with, and then continued to build up upon these scenes, where he had more receptive audiences rolling in the aisles. With a loving precision and sharp, stinging language, he once referred to the former Congressman Jesse Helms as a child murderer on the conversation talk show with Rush Limbaugh as a deviant. He would also end a number of shows pretending to be assassinated himself. By the end of his career, Bill was beginning to make quite a name for himself, and he had already attracted a large following in England, got green-lighted for a talk show, and made a number of appearances on the David Letterman show, though his last performance was on the show that had been pulled, as if itself drew much attention in the forum of a large-scale debate on the censorship. Fortunately, though, this promising career came to an abrupt end in 1994, when he died of pancreatic cancer. In spite of his failing health, Bill continued to perform in smaller venues with frequent recordings. His last recording show was believed to be many by his final performance, but in truth, he did one more after that. It is less known because the show had ended abruptly, apparently after Bill had an encounter with his manager and fiancée, Colleen McGarr, who have reported to have destroyed the footage of the show. Recently, I came into the possession of one of the last surviving tapes of the show. The tape was sent to me and one of Bill's longtime friends, Kevin Booth, who is recently recognized for his documentary on the American War on Drugs. I once wrote to Kevin on a paper. I wrote on Bill's life and material, and we have been in frequent contact ever since. So when I received a package from him in the mail, I was quite taken by the surprise. Inside the package was a VHS tape and a letter from Kevin. First and foremost, asking me to keep the tape for myself, lest I can be found out as well. As it turns out, Kevin had kept the tape of a mystery performance for himself for a few decades. Any copies he attempted to release to the public were quickly destroyed, mostly in freak accidents, although few of them were destroyed by the people who, strangely though, all fit the same description quite, as disturbed loners who had spent a better part of the decade seething under their own mental illnesses before going on small-scale rampages that merely culminated in the mild property damage. Without a second thought, I plopped down on the nearest VHS player, carelessly discarding the Raiders of the Lost Ark tape inside, before popping the unlabeled tape in. As with the prior recording, the quality left something to be desired. The tape was shot on video, and consequently, the picture quality was grainy and cracky, and the sound was too muted, so I had to turn the volume all the way up to make up what was being said. Nevertheless, it was still quite exciting to see Bill Hick's true final performance. The performance began fairly slowly. Bill's failing health was quite evident, as he spent the majority of his time steadying himself on a nearby stool, his voice hoarse and quiet. On top of these, most of the jokes were recycled from previous shows like Debbie Gibson versus Jimi Hendrix, From Your Fucking Heart, and The Evils of Marketing, just to name a few. But then, when he got into the benefits of marijuana and physiological mushrooms over alcohol and tobacco, from there he secluded into a few other bits that were eerily evocative of recent events that he proceeded to predict: the September 11th attack, subsequently invasion of the Middle East, the revelation of the large-scale corruption in the finance industry, and the Middle Eastern rebel uprisings. And then he proceeded to collapse. The audience began to murmur a bit, then panicked. Some scrambled towards the stage, and others asking for a phone, though it was hard to make out due to all the other chaotic voices. And then a gunshot. Everyone froze and looked towards the source of the noise. The man in the suit walked out into the aisles and began to show a badge of some sort. He started to say something, but the radio was so fucked up, it was hard to make out of it. The important stuff came through, though. AFTF, classified, full extent of the law, under control. I sat back and watched in horror as the man produced a syringe from his jacket and proceeded to jab it into Bill's neck, then approached a camera badge in plain view. ATF, I will need to confiscate this taping as evidence. Then the tape went to blue screen, signifying that the rest of the tape was blank. The shock slowly began to settle in as I thought more and more of what I had just witnessed. I knew Bill had been right about a lot of things, but the government conspiracy bit was something I questioned frequently. And yet there was clear evidence that Bill was right. Illuminati exists, and its own government and the business is, and probably even the word. Needless to say, it was quite frightening. I thought about it for a while until the point where my thoughts began to trail off. I checked the clock. 2:45 a.m. Face and mind blank, I switched everything off and went to bed. I figured I'd get a chance to rewatch a tape in the morning, and figured doing so would help me digest everything I had seen. I was wrong. The first thing I woke up was the tape, or at least what was left of it. The tape's casing had been broken into tiny pieces, and then it set aflame along with the rest of the tape. The film inside had been reduced to thin, curvy charcoal, and the casing had been fused together by a lumpy, horribly disfigured mess of plastic. Whoever had gone all this trouble to slip everything into my pillow, like the severed head of my prized horse. In my subsequent swearing fit, I almost failed to notice that the note had been left on my dresser. Slowly grabbing it and trembling in my hand, I began to look it over with the small piece of stationery, embossed with the ATF seal, and the three words that scrawl into print: lock your windows. And that, my pretties, was Bill Hick's final performance. Bill Hick's lost episode Creepypasta. My final thoughts on this story. I do remember seeing this story from Satan Guard on their channel, but I do know a few narrators have narrated this story, and this story does seem believable in a sense. I can definitely see this being believable. And about the shooting part, I don't think that really happened, but yeah, I'm just gonna say I don't see how that would happen. But like I said, I'm not really too sure if that's actually the case. But it's possible because we really don't know a whole lot. So yeah, I mean, this story definitely should have been, a pretty good concept. And yeah, it is a pretty good concept. I mean, I do appreciate the good story. The story had good grammar, sentence structuring, storyline, everything about this was just flat out amazing. I personally really thought this was really enjoyable. and well done. So I definitely do have to say it's a good story. So I mean, the grammar's good, sentence structuring is good, everything about it was good. A little cliche with the VHS part, but I personally still think this is a really good story, at least to my knowledge. Now, with that being said and that being the case, I'm going to sit here and say right now, I don't know who the original author of this story is, so I'm going to leave this as anonymous for now. If I do find out who the original author is, I'll be sure to give him or her proper credit, so there'll be that. Anyways, I guess it's safe to say this story is very believable in detail because I love the detail of what it's done to it, and I like the plot line. Everything about it was just really self-explanatory and well done. I personally still thought it was enjoyable and really neat. So I do have to say still a pretty good story, at least to me. But like I said, like I'm always gonna say, this is on the I found this on the Wayback Machine, so I was able to go find this story, and the story is not bad. I personally have to say, despite it being a little cliched, and some crazy stuff that was mentioned, and some mentions of certain drugs, alcohol, and etc. Some of it, was not necessary. It wasn't really necessary to add those in my opinion, but I mean, I don't know who Bill Hicks is. Like, I've never watched him, so I can't say for certain if I know this guy or not. I don't know who he is, but I know he's a comedian, so I'm gonna have to do some research after this. Oh, well, like always gonna say, and like always continue to say, this is just simply my own personal opinion. And if you happen to disagree with it, that's perfectly fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions regards to these creepypastas. This is just simply my own personal thoughts. I'm going to give this story a 7 out of 10. While it's an enjoyable story and it is believable, but minus the few cliches that were involved and mentions of certain, drugs and that it was not necessary to be added in the story. But like I said, I don't really know if it's evident to the story, but maybe if it is, maybe you guys can let me know. I personally do have to say that this story is very enjoyable in of its own self. Grammar's really good, sentence structure is really good, storyline was really good. Everything about it was just flat out amazing. So, anyways, I guess with that being said, and with that being the case, what did you guys personally think of this creepypasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what you have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to let me know what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm Shadow the Lion Queen. Thank you so much for watching today's video, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell for notifications when I upload so that way you guys won't miss an upload. Be sure to also follow me on Blue Sky, follow me on Twitter, follow me on DeviantArt, as well as follow me on my backup channel known as Ms. Dark Shigo, as links to all those will be in the About page section of the channel, so you guys can go follow me on those and support me. And with that being said, I'll be seeing you guys all in the next video. Peace out. Like always, roll the outro, because I'm out.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Ms. Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.